tried to explain to me. And he wanted to know that what he could do if they would improve. In all greater cities become a monument to the courage and faith of the unsouthern Americans. Buffalo hunters who with his great shot made the old wild from these broken streets and hundreds.
Thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you to one of our continuing interviews with veterans from both World War II, Vietnam, and the Korean War too. This is part of a continuing series that we're doing at Chelmsford Telemedia. We're going to be working in conjunction with several different groups, including the Chelmsford Library, the Library of Congress, and of course our facility right here. We're really privileged today to have a guest with all sorts of stories and who's lived through much history, and he's been a Chelmsford resident since 1965. James Purtell, thank you for joining us here.
Thank you.
You were an aviation radio man,
Right.
on the carrier Essex, but before we get to that, I want to find out a little bit about your life before you actually got involved with the Navy. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Somerville, Massachusetts, and up until the time I was married, and then we moved to Wakefield, and we lived in Wakefield for a while, and then finally we moved to Chelmsford.
What year did you graduate from high school?
1940.
1940.
Yeah.
So you graduated a little bit more than a year before United States actually entered the war. Were you aware of current events and stuff as you were going to high school? You know, all the storm clouds building both in Europe and over in the Pacific?
Yeah. Yes, because, at that time, movies were where you went on your spare time, and of course you had the March of Time, and you had,
For some of the kids who might not know this, what was the March of Time?
It was a news program, and they always started off with a lot of fanfare.
Yeah, it was a news program that you saw in the movie theaters, though.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it was more in depth. Than just news flashes as such. Yeah, I mean, you saw pictures of Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, which at that time we never thought that it would end up the way it did. They were like characters of fun, to watch.
Yeah.
I even remember a story I heard about how kindly Adolf Hitler was, because some small boy had written to him telling him how to get his hair cut so that lock wouldn't fall down over the forehead, and how his whoever told him about it in his cabinet was indignant that somebody would write to him and tell him that. But he was so kindly that he said, "Oh no," he said, "that's nice that little boy took the time out to write me that letter."
So initially, while you were, prior to 1941, the 1940s and late 30s and stuff like that, I mean, Hitler was not the person that later we came to fear and wage war against.
That's
stuff.
right, yeah.
You also grew up in Somerville during the Depression. What was that like?
It was. It wasn't. My father had worked for the American Tube Works as a laborer for some 36 years, and then suddenly no job. And it was not fun. I can remember in the summertime, no shoes. It wasn't fashionable to go barefoot. It was necessary to go barefoot. And I can remember times when I had to stay in the house because I didn't have the clothing to wear to go outside. And as I say, in my growing up days, my mother was the boss of the family. I mean, I can remember my father handing her the paycheck with the little brown envelope, and she would give him 50 cents or $1 back to buy pipe tobacco, and that was...
And they were Irish immigrants?
They were Irish immigrants, yes.
And how old were they when they had come over to the United States?
I don't know. I really don't know. They never discussed their past life. Right. I never heard them talk about their parents, although my mother did write regularly to her sister in Ireland. And I can remember one time when she showed me a picture of where her sister was standing outside this thatched cottage, you know. And I can remember saying to my mother, "Is that where you lived?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "No wonder you left." Whack! I got it in the back of the head. So they never did, although visiting at that time used to be aunts and uncles would come down a couple of times a week. And I used to listen to the stories, the Irish stories. And some of them were pretty funny. You know? I had one uncle named Jim, and he used to sit back in the chair and he'd cut tobacco off his plug, and then he'd start to tell stories. And he'd say to my father, "Oh, Pat, do you remember Mickey O'Leary that used to work in, that used to live in the next county to us?" And they'd talk about Mickey O'Leary, and then they'd up the back and everything else, you know, and then they'd always finish up and somebody would always say, "Oh, Mickey, may you have a bed in heaven." So there are things like that, you know, the story, but they never did discuss their, you know, parents. I don't know why, but they never did, you know.
Now, your father also died in 1936.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Which during that period of time, you know, how were you able to support yourselves?
Well, I honestly can't give you a straight answer. I don't know. I don't know how my mother did it. I know, of course, some of it I recall was stuff that you got from the WPA and things like that, you know, the Works Progress Administration. And then it was a two-family house, so there was income from the tenants, you know.
Oh, so you could rent.
You could rent the first floor. And that was, I don't know how she managed, but she did. She managed it. And they had a mortgage on the house, of course. I think when they first bought the house in probably around 1925, it probably was about $9,000, which of course at that time was a lot of money.
Sure.
But she had some kind of a mortgage on that house where there was always a $3,000 mortgage on it that she didn't pay off. You just paid the interest.
Okay.
And at that time, some of the people believed that if you had a mortgage on a house, you couldn't lose it if somebody sued you. Of course, that's all changed. Now they can take the equity. But at that time, I guess, I don't know whether it was so or not, but that was the general belief. And how she managed, I'll never know.
Were you working at all, or
I was,
while you were going to school?
Well, in the early 30s, of course, I was too young. You know, but yes, but I did work. I worked in the old First National stores where they had, you know, just a small store where there would be a manager and a clerk and what they called an order boy. And I worked as an order boy at first. That was, people would come in and they'd leave a list of things that they wanted, and the order boy would deliver it to their house. And then...
what kind of goods did you sell in the store then?
Some of the things I hated, like 5 bags of coal, and people bought heavy in those days. It was 100 pounds of potatoes and big bags of King Arthur flour, things like that. You know?
So it was kind of a general goods store.
Yes, yeah. They didn't, nothing in the line of meat. I remember they had cheese, and of course the vegetables all came loose, you know, like spinach and squash and things of that nature.
So somebody would come in with just out of curiosity, because this is something that we don't have these days.
That's right, yeah.
Some people do it through the internet, I guess. But they would come in with a list. They'd give it to the store owner or whatever, and then you'd gather up everything and bring it to the person's house in a cart there or something?
Yeah, you had a push cart with big wheels on it. And Saturday, of course, would be the biggest day. That was usually your order day, was Saturday. People would order the stuff on Saturdays mainly. But and then you also had extended a little cuff or credit, you know, which you weren't supposed to do because the First National stores wouldn't approve of it.
Yeah.
But everybody did it, you know.
These were a chain store?
Oh, yeah, it was a chain store. There was the two biggest ones around at that time was the A&P, Atlantic and Pacific, and the First National store.
Yeah.
And I worked there as a clerk, and my hours would be from 8 in the morning until 6 at night, and an hour for lunch. We would close at lunch theoretically you'd close. It was always somebody came, pounded on the window when you let them in.
When you were going to school, would you work there in the afternoon? Or?
Yeah, when I was going to school, yeah. And but when I graduated, I worked full time for a while until they closed the store. And
you remember what you were paid an hour back then?
I think it was roughly about $7 a week.
$7 a week.
Yeah, and Saturday, of course, was the long day. Saturday, you went to work at 8 o'clock, and you didn't get through until 11 at night. And I always had to get in a little early so I could start the coal fire to keep the store warm, you know. And I can remember a little boy that used to come down, and his name was Donnie. And he came poor stock, and he always had on looked like it might have been a man's heavy overcoat that had been cut down to fit him, and he had a big pin. I remember that he used to. This was in the cold weather, and so I used to let Donnie in, and he'd sit by the fire and talk with me, you know. Yeah. And then sometime later, Donnie died. Somehow some boiling water got knocked off the stove, and.
In the store?
No.
Oh, at home or something.
Home, yeah.
Oh,
so that was sad, you know.
Yeah.
But I worked with the First National until they closed the store, and then I went to another store where I worked, and it was a much bigger store.
More like a supermarket? Or?
No, not like a. You still waited on the customers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there was a manager, and there was another clerk, and myself, and an order boy. And then they had business wasn't so good, and they had to lay off somebody, and the other fellow was married, and I was the Johnny-come-lately, so I got cut. Yeah. And then later on, at that time, you went around places looking for work, wherever you could. You walked because you didn't have any money for car fare.
Sure, yeah.
And you walked all over the place looking for work, and somehow or other, I got talking with my brother-in-law about a friend of mine that went to work on the railroad, the Boston and Albany Railroad. And he told me that some of these men from the railroad used to come in. He owned a barroom in Union Square in Somerville. He said that some of these guys used to come in during lunch, and he said, I'll talk to one of them. So he talked to this yard master and said that his kid brother-in-law was looking for a job, and he said, come down and see me, and have him come down at 7 o'clock sharp tomorrow morning. So I went down and sat there and didn't know what was going on. I saw all these engines moving around and so forth. And finally, he took me over to the train master's office and said, this young fellow's looking for a job. He says, I'll put him to work. He says, yeah, come down tomorrow. But at the time, I didn't realize it, but I had to break in, and during the break-in period, you didn't get paid. There was no pay. You know, what you had to do is you had to work on different jobs until the conductor on the job decided that you were okay. You know? And I can remember one fellow hurt my feelings real bad because he was kidding, but I didn't know it. Yeah. His name was Jimmy McLaughlin, and I can remember coming from Leechmere Square on top of a string of freight cars, holding on for dear life, and he says to me, how long have you been breaking in, kid? And I said, a week. He says, geez, you didn't learn very much, did you? So, of course, I was shattered because I thought he was serious. Right, but he wasn't. He was kidding me. I learned this later as I got to know him. Yeah. And finally, anyway, I did start to work. I had to go on what they call the spare board. Incidentally, the pay at that time was $7.56 a day to start. That was money.
That's a big raise there.
And of course, that was 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. And the way the spare board worked, you would show in at 6:45 in the morning. There would be a list of jobs. The clerk would come down with the list of jobs. The senior man would get the pick of the first job, and they'd go right down the list. Now, if you didn't get a job, you still had to stay there till 7:15. You had to stay a half hour in case a job showed up. Okay. Of course, no pay for that. No job shows up, you go home. You come back at 2:45 in the afternoon, and you do the same thing. And you have to stay until 3:15 if you don't get a job. Right. And you do the same. If that doesn't work, you come back at 11:15 at night, and you stay until 11:15. And then you go the same thing, because if you miss, you're automatically off 24 hours. So you wouldn't get anything. So you had to keep showing. Finally, one day I did get an afternoon job. A fellow named Al Williams and I were on the board, and we both got picked, but I was senior to Al because he comes before Williams, you know.
Right.
And so I went to work on what they called a skate job. And I had 30, let me see, track 23 over to 34. And I had no idea what was going on, but all I know is that I had to stop these cars. They had what they called a hump.
Yeah.
And the cars come down a hill and they go onto the various tracks, and the skate man's job is to make sure they don't go out the other end. You know, so you have to get up, and theoretically you're supposed to tie 5 brakes on the cars.
Oh.
And at those days they had stem winder brakes.
Yeah.
They were, like you saw them in the old movies maybe. They weren't that good. Lately, afterwards, they come out with what they called an Ajax brake, which was a wheel. They were great brakes. But anyway, the war broke out.
Well, do you remember? Yeah, when you heard, I mean, for instance, Pearl Harbor. Do you remember hearing about that?
Yes. I was in the kitchen with my mother, and we had a little radio on a shelf, and I heard it. I didn't realize how serious it was.
Yeah.
And I had no idea where Pearl Harbor was. And I can remember saying to my mother, those people are crazy attacking our fleet like that. They got nothing over there. They're all little grass huts, and look at the junk they send us on the 5 and 10. You know, no idea of what we were facing.
Sure.
I wasn't alone either.
And then the next day, did you hear Roosevelt's speech?
Yeah, oh yes, I did. In the Somerville Theater. I went to the Somerville Theater and I heard him.
Oh, really? They
on the news, they had him on.
Yeah.
And
so when did you join the Navy?
I joined the Navy in October of 1942.
Why did you join?
Well,
I mean, why did you join the Navy out of?
You mean? Well, I tell you, I did go at first to the Army, and they handed me a bunch of literature and not much information other than that. And I went into the Navy recruiting office, and I said, well, it's as good as any. So I joined. Besides, I liked the uniform. I thought it was good.
Oh, okay.
And
So you weren't particularly committed to going out to sea or anything like that.
No. It was a good choice looking back on it, I think. And I was gone before I knew it. You know, I mean it's.
So you went into the recruiter, you joined up, and they shipped you out to basic training, which was
Newport, Rhode Island.
Newport, Rhode Island, which they had a huge facility back then.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And how'd you adapt to basic training there? Was that a shock to the system?
Oh, boy, was it ever. You know, when we pulled in on the bus, all of the sailors that were already there were hollering up at us, "You'll be sorry." And boy, they were right.
Really?
I found out that everybody in the world was your boss, you know, and if you were sick, and everybody was sick, it was cold there at that time. And I can recall going to sick bay, you know, you just got cat fever, here's a pill, that's it, you know. And of course there was the drilling and standing watches and all of the stuff that went with it, learning a great deal. I actually, at that time I figured I was going to go to sea on a destroyer or something like that, you know. But they give you a test. And I can't remember what they call it now, but some kind of a test. And the Navy, in their wisdom, decided to make me a radioman. And so they sent me to Pennsylvania.
Oh, so this was not something that you picked?
No, it wasn't. Actually, I'd have been better fitted for a yeoman or a clerk's job than I would. But anyway, I went to radio school in Bedford Springs, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And
was that a large facility there, or?
No, it was a beautiful spot in the mountains. It apparently had been a vacation place, and the Navy had taken it over. Very small town.
Yeah.
You could walk through it in no time at all, and it was a 16-week course. And if you were
Did you know anything about radios going in there?
No, I had a friend that was very good with it, and I was interested for a while.
Okay.
But I had no idea about the code.
Yeah.
And so code was pounded into you, you know. And if you were real good at code,
Are you talking about Morse code? Or?
yes, Morse code, and when it gets pounded into you, and then if you're real good at it, when you graduate from school, you'll get a crow. That's third-class petty officer.
Yeah.
There was no danger of me getting that crow because I had all I could do to copy 18 words a minute, and that was required at that time.
Okay.
So when we graduated from there after the 16-week course, we did nothing there except we did a little drilling sometimes, but it was all work. It was
And so, but it was besides learning code, would you learn other aspects? For instance, the radio engineering or anything like that?
nothing. It was strictly code. Code, and if you didn't know how to type, of course you had a typing course because everything was done, you know, with the typewriter.
So basically, all day long though was ...
Yep, exactly, and that's exactly how you behaved. You went around saying ... You know.
They did nothing on frequencies or wavelengths or anything like that.
No, it was strictly an operator, radio
Okay.
operator. So anyway, when the course ended, you had another choice to pick where you wanted to go. There was one other thing too, which I thought was dumb of the Navy. The night that we reported to this base was Christmas Eve. Our orders were to report to Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Now, when we got there, everybody at the base, at this little base, was gone on leave. You know? And the thought often occurred to me afterwards, why couldn't they have just let it go until like New Year's? Because nothing was done. All we did was hang around. And in that way, some of these guys who never saw home again would have at least had that last Christmas, but they didn't. So
Right.
anyway, the Navy did that. But
Yeah.
thank you, I could use that. I told you I didn't need water, but I guess I do.
So going through basic training and going through the school and stuff, were you starting to feel at home with the Navy?
Yes, I was glad to get out of boot camp. I hated the uniform at boot camp. And I hated particularly leggings, because I couldn't get both of my knees together if I had to stand on my head to do it. And I didn't like those leggings.
Yeah.
I was delighted to get rid of them. But it was a good experience. You know, I mean, I liked the Navy, actually.
Yeah.
And when we graduated from radio school, they gave us the choice. And everybody said, oh, don't put in for aviation. They're not taking anybody.
Yeah.
So I said, what the heck, I'll put in anyway. So I put down aviation. And sure enough, I got picked for aviation.
Did you put down aviation because you wanted to fly?
Because it sounded interesting. It's, you know, I didn't know, I didn't know what I wanted. You know, I was just a kid. And so I did apply for it, and I was picked, and I went to Memphis, Tennessee, the Naval Air Technical Training Center. Now this is where I started to get more technical stuff.
Okay.
Use of the setting up transformers.
So was this springtime that you went to, you said Memphis?
Memphis, Tennessee, yeah.
Springtime that you went to the facility there? Or?
Let me see. I got out of the Navy. Yeah, it would have been. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a good course.
What kind of stuff were they
There was
teaching?
directional finders. There was transmitters. There was receivers, and there was radar, the early radar, and there was also the terminology that you used.
So all this stuff was basically new to you.
Yes, it was. It was all new. Yeah.
When you came out of that course, I mean, do you think you received some good training?
Yes, I did. Yeah, yeah. I could track things down with the direction finder, and I could set up transmitters. At that time, the transmitters were very ungainly. If there was a frequency that wasn't in the block in front of you, you had to take this out. It was huge. It weighed heavy. And you'd have to get another one and put the other one in, and then reset the whole thing by hand, you know. And it was not easy.
Now, did you ever use Morse code, though? I mean,
I used Morse code once
Oh,
from an aircraft.
I just can't
And
imagine that.
in the aircraft, of course, your key was different than it was on the ground because of the, if you were up higher, your hands were cold and you had gloves, so the key had a big knob on
Yeah.
the end of it. And it was the message I sent was sighted whale sank same. That was it. That's the only time I ever sent code. Never
Yeah.
sent it after that or before. But now, of course, it's all obsolete.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
But when I graduated from that school, I was given
in Memphis.
In Memphis, I
Yeah.
was given a crow, third class petty officer.
Okay.
Well, just before we graduated, we get called into the mess hall by an officer, and he had a bunch of us there, and he said that there was a need for aerial gunners in the fleet. And he wanted to know if any of us wanted to volunteer for aerial gunnery, because it is a voluntary job, So I figured,
why is it a voluntary job, out of
well,
curiosity?
because it's much more dangerous, and
So being an aerial gunner is much more dangerous than being a radio man, even though you're
oh,
kind of right
sure,
next.
because you're sitting in a turret, and
Yeah.
your anti-aircraft fire is being directed at you, and it is just more dangerous.
Okay, we'll get into that
Yeah.
a little bit as
So anyway, I decided, sure, why not? Besides, you got 50% of base pay. In addition, to your regular pay, you got 50% more for flying.
Okay.
So they sent me to Hollywood, Florida for that.
So first, why did you volunteer? When you volunteered for that, did you know what you were getting yourself into?
Not really. When I think back on it, not really. It was just that I was interested in. It sounded like it would be good, and it's and I was interested too in the money.
Okay.
My mother needed that money.
Yeah.
So.
You remember how much you were getting paid at the time, out of curiosity?
I can't remember. I don't remember. But I know I had 2 paydays, and I know one of the paydays I sent practically all of the money to my mother,
Yeah.
and then one payday I would keep a good portion of it for myself.
Sure. Yeah.
So, there was in gunnery school. I was probably in the best shape of my life because there it was run here, run there, and the judo and the boxing, and if the instructor thought that you were goofing off, your next opponent was the instructor, and believe me, you didn't goof off.
Oh,
then.
really?
It was brutal,
Yeah.
and it was. But we machine guns, we took them apart and put them together, and took them apart and put them together, and memorized the names of all the parts, and when I first saw them doing it, I said, I'll never learn it.
All
But
different caliber machine guns too?
It was a 50 and a 30 caliber we
Okay.
practiced on, and to this day, I know I could strip a 30 without any problems.
Yeah.
And a 50 also, for that matter, although I was more familiar with the 30.
Right. How long was that training there in Hollywood, Florida?
Geez, I really don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay. But Florida, Hollywood, Florida, back then was not the urban area that it is now.
It was
Right.
a very pretty area,
Yeah.
I remember. As a matter of fact, first time I saw houses like with colored tile on the roof.
Okay,
and
and
things
that
like
kind of
that.
pastel.
Yeah, and it was we didn't get a great deal of liberty there anyway. They were tough on us. And what they used to do, the first things, of course, we fired were shotguns. You would go out in a shotgun range, and you would learn to double
Had you
shoot.
had any experience with
Never
guns
fired a
before,
shotgun
anything?
before in my life.
Listen, James, we just actually reached our half-an-hour time limit.
Yeah, good.
So I'm going to have you back for another show.
All
Okay, so we can get into your experiences in the Navy, because we haven't got to that. And that's what this
Okay,
is
that's
about.
fine,
So
fine.
I want to thank you very much for joining us, and it's been great talking to you. And we'll see you soon. And thank you for joining us with the History Show.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain to me the and he wanted to know that what he could do if they would improve. In far greater cities become a monument to the courage and faith of the unscarred Americans. Buffalo hunter who with his breaking up made the old on these broken streets.
And thank you for joining us. My name is Matt Scott, and we're here for a second interview with James Purtell. He was a Navy veteran, a radio operator during World War II. Flew off of several different aircraft carriers. And this interview series that we're doing is one of a number of interviews that we've done with veterans from around the Chelmsford area. A lot of these guys are great storytellers, and we're really fortunate to be honored by their presence in the studio here. And James has a whole lot of stories to tell. He's also got a great sense of humor. He was a graduate from Somerville High School in 1940. Grew up in Somerville and worked a while in the for the railroad, and later went back to that. And he joined the Navy in 1942. Went through basic training in Newport, on to radio school in Pennsylvania, and on to from there to Memphis. And finally, he volunteered for some reason that even maybe he's not sure of, to go to gunnery school in Hollywood, Florida, which is where we left off at our last interview. James, thank you for coming back here and talking with us.
You're welcome, Matt.
It's great having you here.
I enjoy it.
So when we finished off last time, you were at the gunnery school, learning to shoot everything from shotguns to 30 caliber and 50 caliber machine guns, how to take them apart, and how to operate them. What kind of, now you were also being trained to use these on an aircraft.
Yes.
So what kind of training does that entail?
Well, after you became proficient with the shotguns, they had different turrets that they had on trucks, and they would put you in this turret, and the truck would pull the turret along, and you'd be in it. And they would, out on like a railroad track, they would have a flat car, motorized, and it would have a tow target on it. And as you went along, you would fire at the sleeve, But the main thing was to get you used to the different types of turrets. Some of them were awful.
Yeah.
I remember one that was called a consolidated turret, and when you got behind the gun to fire it, it just seemed to go chug, 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 chug. Well, that's great, but it's not very good for combat,
Sure, and for those of us who haven't, who are not familiar with these turrets and stuff, most of these are actually, I mean, how do they work? Maybe you can explain that.
The turret is usually it's a round ball type thing, and you get into it. You climb into it, and you pull your feet up, and there's armor plating that comes up under your feet. Now you're curled up. Of course, I could never get into one now, but I could then. And
so you're really compacted there.
You are, yes. Your machine gun is located alongside of you, and it's in a fixed sling that holds it. In front of you is a pistol grip, and directly over that is a gun sight, which is illuminated.
Okay.
And you can flip it on, and wherever you move that handle, that pistol handle, that is where your turret and your gun will go. And that's how you manipulate the turret, so you can either go up or down or side to side. And some of the methods that they taught us, even at the time, I thought were ridiculous, and I think they were eventually dropped. But they had this 35 mil sight. As you look through it, had rings in it, and
Sure.
The method that they told us to use against an attacking plane was to follow the plane with the gun sight, then stop it, and watch where the enemy plane went, how far he went, and say to yourself, elephant, and how far it took him to when you said elephant was the amount of lead that you gave him when you were firing. Well, of course, that's ridiculous. You're in combat, you're going to say elephant, all of this stuff, you're not going to do that. Then they come out with what they called a cone system of firing, and that was if he was right astern off your beam, that you would give him 3 leads, and then cut that down as he approached the tail. If he was coming straight at you, then you fired head on, and things of that nature. Then they also taught you, like everybody, when you first heard about tracer bullets, you figured, boy, that'd be easy. All you got to do is follow the tracer. You don't. If you do that, you're going to miss, because the tracers arc when they go away from you. What you have to do is look at the target and see if the bullets are hitting your target.
Okay.
And then also, if you're shooting at something on the ground, you have to learn to lead and lag because of the speed of your plane and the speed of the object that you're firing at on the ground.
And I guess one of the other things that you have to compensate for, which is very different than shooting a gun from a fixed position, is that you're always moving.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And you're dealing with a 3-dimensional plane. I mean, somebody can be coming from up, down, right, left, north, south, east, west, and stuff. So there's... was there a certain technique that they trained you to be able to, keep track of what was, everything in the sky?
Yeah, they had a movie screen similar to the one that you have in the studio here, and you would sit in a a simulation like they still use today in aircraft, and you would be theoretically in the tail of a plane, and nowhere suddenly a plane would come. Not only did you have to at them, but you had to identify them. You had to know what is this coming at me? Is it a friendly or not?
Yeah.
And they had different methods of teaching. They would show planes in a like that, and you'd have to know what it was.
Yeah.
It was difficult to do.
How long was gunnery school, approximately?
Oh, gunnery school. Let me see. It was the shotgun range, and then there was the turrets, and I really don't know. I'd say maybe about 10 or 12 weeks.
They did send you for a few runs up in a plane too, right?
No. There was not. We after when you graduated from gunnery school, then you would be assigned to a particular type plane.
Okay.
Some would go to dive bombers. Some would go to torpedo bombers. Others would go to like PBM flying boats. Things like that.
And you were assigned to a
torpedo bomber.
A torpedo bomber.
I was assigned to Jacksonville, Florida, for training as an aerial gunner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was what, your 4th or 5th school that you were?
Yes, I did. I had a lot of schools. Yeah.
So what did that training entail?
That was actually when I went to Jacksonville, Florida. I had never been in a plane before, and so of course I looked up a torpedo bomber to see what it was like and so forth, and looking in the inside at the equipment, which unfortunately nobody, unless you asked somebody to, they didn't do a very good job of explaining it to you. And my first pilot was a Marine. He was a lieutenant. His name was Kaiser, Lieutenant Kaiser.
Yeah.
And like the business of arming the bombs. And
now, when you're talking about your first pilot in school, or?
No, my first pilot in a torpedo bomber.
Okay.
Was you trained with the pilot. He was also trained.
Oh, so he was trained with you. So yeah. Kaiser and you went to school together?
Yeah, we both did our flying together. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was there was torpedo runs and navigation hops, and sometimes we would just drop smoke bombs and go and strafe them, and then there was.
He was already a trained pilot before he was there, though.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So how was your first run in the plane there? I mean,
I got sick.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
I used the paper bag and lost a great deal of interest in what was going on. As a matter of fact, the pilot had asked me about 3 times, "Have you armed the bombs?" Finally, I said, "Yes, sir." But I never got sick again. That was just that one time, and you know, because I don't know what kind of dives we were doing, but you feel it in your stomach when that plane goes down and pulls up. You can feel on your face too. You can feel the pull of the G's.
Sure. So for those of us who haven't flown in torpedo bombers, can you explain maybe, you know, your primary mission and how, you know, I mean, what they would do? I mean.
Well, are you talking now combat missions or just training?
Well, initially when they train you, I mean, what the planes were built for.
Well, actually, of course, they were built to drop torpedoes.
Yeah.
But our Navy had terrible torpedoes. They ran astray. They very often didn't explode, and we really dropped the ball when it came to torpedoes. And what they would do is you would go up with a torpedo and make a run. You know, sometimes you would do it in daylight.
Okay.
And sometimes at night. And at nighttime, of course, the radar would be used. I'd be using the radar, and the plane was. You had the pilot, of course, up front where the controls were. The middle compartment was loaded with all kinds of electronic gear. Then you had the turret, which was behind the greenhouse where the pilots flew. And the gunner would be in there, and down below was what they called the tunnel, and the tunnel gunner would be there. That would be the radioman, and
Okay.
all of the radio equipment would be in front of you.
Yeah.
You had a transmitter, receiver, radar.
This is a crew of three people.
Yep. And
But it's not a particularly big plane.
It was 7 ton.
7 ton.
Yeah, it weighed 7 ton. It was a good sized plane. It was the biggest carrier-based plane
Okay.
at the time. And they were replacing the Devastator, which had such bad luck at Midway, you know. And they were a brand new plane. They were good. They were good planes. At least I thought so.
Yeah.
You know? And so we would do that kind of work, torpedo runs.
Now, also in Jacksonville, were you taking off from carriers and stuff?
No.
Because that's a lot different experience,
Yes,
too.
it is, yeah. The pilots weren't either. They did a lot of what they call touch and go. Usually, we weren't with them when they would do that. But they would come down, they would land, and then they would take off immediately, you know, and touch and go. As a matter of fact, I was lucky, and Lieutenant Kaiser apparently hit some kind of a light at the end of the runway, and it came right in through the tunnel, the radioman's compartment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was grounded for a bit.
Yeah. So the process of releasing a torpedo from one of these planes, I mean, how do you do it? Just, I mean, does the plane have to dive down and release it?
It has to.
How's it work?
Yeah, it has to come down. It has to fly straight and level. It has to fly into about 1,500 feet of the ship, and then the pilot would drop it.
And at what altitude do you have to?
You would be maybe 150, 200 feet.
Okay, you're real low.
Oh yeah, you're a sitting duck, because you have to make a straight run. There's no evasive tactics or anything.
Yeah.
The instant that the fish is dropped, but by then you're over the ship and they're firing at you.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And but I never ever made a torpedo run in a torpedo bomber.
Oh, you didn't?
Never. No. Just practiced. You know, just in training. And the only time that I think once in combat they were dropped, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you did your training in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And at that point, were you finished with your schools?
Yes. Actually, what happens then I became an air crewman.
Okay.
That's when I was allowed to wear these wings.
Yeah.
If you'll notice, there are 3 gold stars on there. But when you're just an air crewman, those stars aren't there.
Okay.
They're just openings. And you don't get the stars until you actually fly combat missions. And then when you fly the combat missions, you're entitled to the stars.
Okay.
So after Jacksonville, I was assigned to Torpedo Squadron 13, which was the first squadron that was going to go aboard the USS Franklin, which was just being finished. It was a brand new ship. And I was stationed at Quonset Point, Rhode Island for training in this new squadron. And somehow or other, when I got there, I don't know how, but the personnel officer discovered, I don't know, I certainly didn't volunteer for it, but somehow he discovered that I knew office work and was a good typist. So he used me to help commission the squadron. And things were going along pretty good. We did a lot of training. Same idea actually as what we did at Jacksonville.
Okay.
And
but were you taking off from the carrier?
no,
then?
no. We
Okay.
still weren't. We still were not
Yeah.
to that stage yet. This was all basic squadron
Okay.
training. So I was picked.
Were you still with Kaiser? Was he up there?
No, no. I had a new pilot.
Oh,
his,
new pilot.
His name was Ransom.
Okay.
He was not very friendly, not a very friendly type. As a matter of fact, in this squadron, there was a definite demarcation point between the officers and the enlisted men. I know there wasn't the type of camaraderie that you sometimes run into.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was doing the office work for Lieutenant Rec, and I was myself and another fellow named Lunardi were picked for night fighter work. We got this brand new radar called Ash radar, and they decided that they would train us as Nighthawks, they called it. What they would do, at that time we were flying fighter planes with F-4Fs. What they would do is they would have one fighter plane would take off. He was an enemy plane. Then two goodies would take off, and then we would take off. Then the two goodies would join us, and it was our job to lead them to that enemy plane using the Ash radar equipment. And we would do it, and then
Yeah.
the two goodies would theoretically shoot them down.
Okay.
So Lunardi and I were picked for this.
Yeah.
And then we made a mistake.
Uh-oh.
We discovered, we were down in Virginia. We were down there for a short period of time for training, and there was a place, I think it was Oceana was the name of it. And anyway, somebody discovered that you could get home and just barely on a long weekend pass and still get back. So we did it. Well, of course, coming back on the train, we're playing cards. I won a considerable amount of money, and I guess Lou did too. And of course, the booze was flowing fast and free.
Yeah.
And when we got into Quonset Point, we were a little bit late. Oceana it was. When we get back to Oceana, we were a little bit late.
Yeah.
And so we extended it a mite. So of course now we're absent without leave.
Okay.
So back to the base we went, and they had us up for a captain's mast. Well, of course, Lieutenant Rec.
No, they had you up for a what?
Captain's mast.
Which is?
Mete out punishment. You go up before and then you explain what happened
Yeah.
and so forth. And Lieutenant.
Well, I mean, were you hours late or days? Or?
Oh, we were a day.
Oh, day late. Okay.
And Lieutenant Rec took us up, and the captain was a Captain French.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Rec was bitterly disappointed in me, and rightfully so. I mean, I did something stupid I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the captain he fined me $20, both of us, and he made us a prisoner at large because there was no brig for 20 days, and we had to sign 24 hours a day. We had to sign a book the Master at Arms would bring around at night, and of course
Yeah.
we soon discouraged the Master at Arms from doing that. And anyway, it worked out well, but for one thing, it cost me the Good Conduct Medal. Big
Yeah.
deal. And ultimately it got me transferred because we went aboard the Franklin.
Yeah.
And the Franklin was a brand new ship, and I can remember the commissioning of the ship. I remember the skipper of the ship, I can't remember his name now, but he was saying that the Japanese would never sink that ship because it was so well protected and so forth. Well, anyway, I was on it for the shakedown cruise, which was down to Trinidad, I think. And I was walking along the hangar deck one day with a parachute, and Lieutenant Rick spotted me, and he said, "Purtell, where are you going?" I said, "I have a hop, sir." He said, "You're grounded, return the chute." I said, "Okay," and he said, "I want you to report to the officers' ready room at 0800 tomorrow." So I said, "Okay." So I took the chute back, and I went to the ready room the next morning, and he put me on what they call JG battle phones. It was, well, you wore these big headphones, you got information from the combat center and so forth, and wrote it on the board.
Yeah.
So I was there at 0800, and Captain French came by. He was going on a hop, and he saw me, and I was still there at 12 o'clock. I went to lunch, came back at 1300, and he had an afternoon hop. So he walked by me again. And when he returned, he walked over to me and he said, "Sailor, how long have you been on this watch?" And I said, "I've been on it since 0800 this morning, sir." He said, "On whose orders?" I said, "Lieutenant Rick." He said, "I meted out the punishment in this case." He said, "I don't want you or any other sailor standing more than 2 hours on this watch." So apparently this didn't exactly make a hit with Lieutenant Rick.
Yeah.
So I got the word that when we got back to Norfolk, I was going to be transferred.
Yeah.
So up I went to the office, and I knew the yeoman. His name was Jim Wheeler. And I said, "Jim, I understand I'm to be transferred." He said, "Yes, where would you like to go?" I couldn't believe my ears. I said, "I'd like to go back to Quonset Point." So back to Quonset Point I went. He said, "Do you want the orders right now, Jim?" And I said, "Yes, you better give them to me before Lieutenant Rick finds out about it." And then, well, I heard later, I can't confirm this, but I heard later that my pilot, Lieutenant Ransom, was killed in the Battle of the Philippine Seas.
Ah.
So maybe I was luckier than I realized.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did return to Quonset Point, and that was when I became with VT 83, Torpedo Squadron 83.
Okay.
And this was a different kettle of fish. The discipline was still there, but there was a camaraderie between the officers and men. And again, I ended up doing paperwork up in the office with the personnel officer,
Yeah.
a Lieutenant Brown, one of the nicest men I ever met.
Oh, really?
He was a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And he gave me paperwork that I had no business even seeing. I can remember he gave me officers' fitness reports to type up, and I can remember him saying to me, "Purtell, if the captain comes in and sees you with that, I don't care what you do with it, eat it, anything, but don't let him see you with the fitness reports," you know, because that was something an enlisted man wasn't supposed to know about.
Okay, yeah.
So it paid off working for the personnel office, because I got a lot of information
Yeah.
that otherwise I wouldn't have gotten, you know. And sometimes some of the things some of the things were funny, you know. We had one officer, and the other officers used to kid him, you know, a lot. I don't know why, but they did. And he came into me one day and he said, "Purtell," he said, "I want you to type up some lists," he says, "here for promotions for the enlisted men." And he said, "I want you to type up for aviation radioman, aviation ordnanceman, and aviation motor machinist." He said, "for all the ranks." So I said, "Okay." So I typed them all up. They gave the guys the test.
Yeah.
Well, about a week later, one of the members of the staff came in. I don't remember his rank, but he said to me, "Who typed up these tests for the different ranks?" I said, "I did." He said, "Who told you to do that?" I said, "Lieutenant Gamilla." He said, "Where's the answer book?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, apparently nobody had the answer book, so they couldn't grade all of these. I had to do it all over again." But that was just one funny incident that happened, you know. And the reason I can remember Lieutenant Gamilla, the officers made a big picture of him, took a big photograph of him looking out at sea with binoculars, you know, and it was huge. It was like the side of a wall. They had it in the ready room, you know, as a gag, you know.
Yeah.
They finally transferred him, and I can remember I had to send letters after him looking for weapons that were missing.
Oh, really? So how long was it till you were assigned to your ship?
In Torpedo Squadron 83, let's see, we trained at Quonset, we trained at Martha's Vineyard, we trained at Cape Cod, we trained a little in Florida, and then we went aboard the transport that took us to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then in Hawaii, we did some more training on Maui. We were stationed on Maui up until January of 1945. And then they put us on another transport and they took us to Guam. And on Guam, we stayed on there for a while. I think I might have even picked up a little malaria on Guam.
Yeah.
But finally, on March the 10th, I think it was March the 10th of 1945, they put us in a boat and they took us to the Essex.
Was that a new carrier?
No,
or?
no. It's been one of all the other carriers were Essex-type carriers.
Okay.
It was a very lucky ship. It had been hit by a kamikaze before.
Yeah.
As soon as we got aboard, we went to general quarters. Now, most of the crew had never been on a ship before, and they didn't know what general quarters. I knew what general quarters was because I, heard it on the Franklin.
Yeah.
So anyway, they sent somebody from ship's company down to kind of calm the guys down. We were in our ready room. The ready rooms were very nice. They were sort of, if you picture a wide bus, double seats all the way down. They were air conditioned, and we had our own. It was very nice. They were nice ready rooms.
Yeah.
And he just came down to calm us down, and we heard this was in Ulithi Harbor. Ships everywhere you could see.
Yeah.
And we could hear the enemy plane go overhead.
Ulysses Harbor?
Yeah.
Where?
In the islands, in the South Pacific.
What islands?
Ulithi Lagoon is what they called it. Ulithi
okay.
was the island itself. And we heard this plane go over, and we heard an explosion. And the next day we heard that the carrier Randolph had been hit by a Betty kamikaze bomber. So that was our introduction to combat.
Yeah.
And then we put to sea, and we were told in the briefing that we were going to be the first carrier-based planes to attack the homeland of Japan. And, of course, they had the Doolittle raid before that.
Right.
And I guess they did have B-29s that had hit them, but not carrier-based.
Yeah.
And we were told...
So the Doolittle was from carriers.
Yeah, that was from a carrier.
Yeah.
But they weren't carrier-based. They were army planes.
Okay. Right.
So this island, this airfield we were going to hit was in southern Japan. It was called Nitakahara Airfield. And they had given us the information about it, and so the morning that we were taking off, incidentally, the pilot had to pick a crewman that he wanted to go with him.
Yeah.
So he picked me,
Who was the pilot?
He was an ensign at the time, Leclerc, real good pilot.
Had you flown with him
Oh yeah,
for a good
sure.
deal before
Underneath the Cape Cod bridges.
Really?
Yes. He was...
They don't allow you to do that anymore.
Oh, no, they wouldn't. We put on an air show down in Cuba, too, one time, with all the girls in the water waving at us.
Oh, wow.
But anyway...
So you had a lot of experience with him.
Yeah, oh yeah. He was a great pilot.
Yeah.
So we...
James, I think we're going to have you back for one more show, because if
Sure.
you can believe it, we've done another half hour.
Oh, the time does go by quickly.
Well, I tell you, you're a great talker, and you tell a great story.
Blabbermouth, you mean?
So what I'd like to do is ask you, can we have you back for one more show here?
Oh, sure.
So we can talk
Sure,
about your
sure.
adventures.
Yep. I'm willing if you're willing.
Yeah, I'm willing, and I want to hear what happened in Japan. And again, I want to thank you very much for joining us here at Chelmsford Telemedia and being part of this project and stuff. And we will see you back here for a third part of this interview. And thank you for joining us here at Chelmsford TV on the History Show.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Great.
Green magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain James and he wanted to know that what he could do in this world. The world's greater city become a monument to the courage and faith of the upstart American. Buffalo Hunter, who with his great show, a show from these broken streets.
Welcome to the History Show. My name is Matt Scott, and thank you for joining us. This is a program where we've been concentrating a lot of our time and enjoying it very much on interviewing veterans in conjunction with a veterans archiving project with the Library of Congress. We've been working both with the Chelmsford Senior Center and the library and with various volunteers here. And this has been coordinated by a number of different people, but Terry and Julie, who's also working behind camera, deserve a lot of credit for this program too. We're here for our third interview with Mr. James Purtell, who served as a radio man aviator in World War II. He was stationed out in the Pacific Theater, and he spent most of his active combat time on the Essex carrier out there. He went through a number of different schools, a whole lot of training, and after a number of different adventures and stuff, finally took some long journeys and ended out in the Pacific, out in Guam. And James, thank you for being back here for this
My
third
pleasure.
interview.
I enjoy it.
You're a wonderful storyteller, and it's very interesting. When we left you, you were about to go on your, was it your first combat mission?
Yeah, it was the first combat.
And was that first combat mission going to Japan?
Yes, southern Japan. Yeah, we were headed for an airfield called Nitakahara Airfield, and we took off, of course, real early in the morning. It was pitch black. And
can I just ask you,
Sure.
before you get into that, how long had you been stationed on the carrier when you were assigned this mission?
Let me see, that was the 18th. It would have been 10 days.
10 days.
Yeah.
And life on the carrier?
8 days.
8 days.
Yeah.
And life on the carrier, were you adjusting to it? And
Yeah, I enjoyed the carrier. It was a great carrier, but even, we had been briefed for the mission. And so when you're standing in the chow line, you can hear ship's company. Of course, we were told, you don't say anything about the briefing outside of the briefing room. And of course, we knew where we were going, but you would hear sailors saying, "Oh yeah, we're going back to the States. They're gonna refit." And I'm saying to myself, "Yeah, the States, all right, yeah."
tell us a little bit about the carrier, life on a carrier, especially one of these older World War II carriers. How large was the Essex?
Well, it was 900 feet long, and you had about 3,000 men on it. Everything was self-contained.
How many planes?
Our squadron had 90 planes for the entire air group, more or less, 90 planes. Our squadron, most VT squadrons, about 15 planes, but that can vary also,
What kind of living quarters would you have?
Bunk rooms, not the most comfortable in the world because, blackout conditions. And of course, they had these fireproof coverings on the bunk. I can remember maybe sleeping in the bunk room once. I didn't like it, and so I found other places to sleep. And like everybody did, sometimes just out on deck,
Yeah. Now, when you're on there and you're not doing missions, which is most of the time, what would you spend your time?
In the ready room, writing letters, listening to music, or that was about it.
You have movies, or?
No, we didn't. Well, yeah, you did have movies if you were like on a recreation period,
Yeah.
on the carrier. But I mean, like I wore a sailor's uniform, but I was hardly a sailor. I knew the terms. I knew, bulkheads and overheads and ladders and so forth. But when it came to seamanship or anything like that, I know nothing about running a ship.
Sure.
My primary and sole duty was to fly and drop bombs or strafe with a machine gun.
Now, how many times had you actually taken off from a carrier when you were going to go on this first mission? Had you done it a whole number of
Oh,
times?
I had done it on the Franklin.
Yeah.
Just a couple of times, I think.
Okay.
And
What's it like taking off on one of those old single-engine planes?
you're in front of the just a little aft of the superstructure, and the guys out there waving that flag, and the engine gets louder and louder and louder, and you're belted in.
You're at this point. You were a radio operator, not a gunner.
Oh yeah, no, I'm still a gunner.
You're still a gunner.
I'm a gunner. Yeah.
So you're in the turret.
I could be not necessarily. I could be in the turret, or I could be in the tunnel. The tunnel also had a gun, a .30 caliber that stuck out. It was a tail gun. It stuck out through the under part of the
carrier. So how would you operate that? Just out of curiosity.
You'd lay down. You could actually put a belt on. I never used it, but there was a harness that you could put on, and then you fire. The only thing is, you could only fire at something after you had passed it, because of course you don't see it, because
yes.
It's after you've gone by it. And that was a .30 caliber. I always liked the .30 caliber. You could spray out more lead with it.
Yeah, and then the turret in this torpedo bomber was basically tell us about. I mean, you did talk about that a little bit, but that was a training turret. What was the turret like in these planes on the aircraft?
Well, when you went into the tunnel of the plane, the turret was set up above you.
Yeah.
It'd be up. You'd be looking up at the turret. It was a round ball, and you would crawl up from the tunnel, the radioman's compartment, into the. And then, like I told you earlier, you had a piece of armor plating that you pulled up, and you were curled in a position like this.
But it was not comfortable, really.
Oh no, it wasn't very comfortable, and you could fire right, left, up, above. If you were firing and you came to the tail, they had what they call a fire interrupter. It was theoretically it would kick the gun up so you wouldn't shoot your tail off,
Right.
But that had been done. I seen planes come back with the tail
shot really?
by the gunner because the interrupter didn't work.
Now these were pretty large planes. How would they take off? I mean, can you tell us about the process of them taking off from an aircraft carrier?
Well, yes, as I say, it would be just aft of the superstructure, just a little to the rear of the superstructure. The signal officer would be out there, and he'd be listening to it, and he'd wave the flag, and the pilot watches it. He's standing on his brakes, and as soon as the signal officer determines from experience that it's okay, he drops the flag, pilot releases the brakes, and away you go. Sometimes when you come to the end of the carrier, if your airspeed isn't strong enough, you'll drop.
Yeah.
Sometimes guys have gone into the drink. But we always made it. And sometimes, of course, you'd be catapulted off. They'd put you on a catapult.
Right.
1 minute you're sitting still, the next minute you're going 90 miles an hour.
Now, why sometimes catapulted, and why other times you just use the thrust of the plane?
The reason why, I don't know.
Okay.
It depends on the circumstances, I suppose, of how pressed they are for time.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the person who was your pilot at this time was Leclerc.
Yeah, Leclerc, yeah.
And you had been with him for a while.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you were an admirer of his skills.
Oh, he was great. He should have been a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
I think he would have been, but I think he got in trouble too. And we for some reason, we always seemed to not be with the group when we were returning. We ended up alone an awful lot.
Well, tell us about that first mission. Your first mission, you're going to Japan.
Well, one of the most dangerous parts, I thought, of the mission, and still think, was getting to my plane. You're crawling through all of these whirling propellers in the pitch dark, and you've got to get to your plane.
So this is a night mission.
Well, it's actually early morning.
Early morning, okay.
I think reveille was probably like 2:30, and then breakfast, and then man your planes.
Okay.
So you get in the plane and buckle yourself in so that you're all ready to go. Depending on it, like in my case now, that excuse me. I was riding in the turret that day because I was alone.
Yeah.
And I had no conception of what I was getting into. I know when I was a young boy, I used to read Flying Aces about World War I pilots.
Yeah.
And, the planes were coming out of the sun and so forth.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So when I got to the end of the carrier, I fully anticipated that there was going to be Jap planes all over me, So I had the turret going back and forth, looking up and down and everywhere. Nothing. I don't see anything except
Sure.
our own planes.
Yeah.
So, all right, now I'm calm, and it's getting, it's still blackout, but it's getting lighter all the time. And as dawn breaks, I look ahead, and I can see this beautiful island. Oh, it was pretty. I could see the greenery of the farms right down to the edge of the ocean. Not a wasted inch of space. Beautiful land. Beautiful morning. And we get over the target area.
That was Japan.
That was Japan.
And how long did it take you to get there?
It wasn't long because we didn't have, I'd say maybe 45 minutes.
Only 45 minutes?
Yeah. We were close.
How fast would the plane fly?
The plane would do over 200 an hour. And we approached the target area, and Lieutenant Leclerc told me to arm the bombs.
Yeah.
So I climbed down out of the turret, and I armed the bombs, and I climbed back up onto the turret.
And that process of arming the bombs, is it twisting the...
No, it's just a lever.
A lever, okay.
You press a release on it, you push it forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what happens is there's a wire that goes through the impeller in the bomb, the little propeller. And when that wire is pulled out and that impeller turns so many times, the bomb is then armed. If it goes off without that wire being pulled out, it wouldn't explode. Theoretically, it wouldn't explode.
Yeah.
So I climbed back up into the turret, and I know the thought that was going through my mind was, this is the day I'm going to die.
You're over Japan.
Yeah. And I look down, I see this airfield, and we go into a glide, and Leclerc drops the bombs.
How many pound bombs were there?
I think on this raid, I think it was 100-pound bombs.
Yeah.
Only 100 pounds. And I opened up with the machine gun on any buildings or planes or anything else I could see in the airfield.
Yeah.
And then...
At what altitude were you when you dropped the bombs?
Usually we go down to about 2,000 feet. I don't know whether we went lower on that one or not.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But anyway, we joined up, and much to my surprise, to find that I was still alive, and we went back to the carrier.
Now, and there were no Japanese planes or anything like that?
They were on the field, but there was none attacking us. Of course, we had air cover. I don't know what the air cover might have ran into. We had F-6Fs, no, I think probably F-4Fs at that time.
Yeah.
That were protecting us above us,
Right.
And
then, how about anti-aircraft?
There was anti-aircraft fire because, I quite frankly, I didn't see it because I was too busy. I was too occupied.
Yeah.
But when we landed back at the carrier, we went in the ready room, and then that was when we discovered that two of our guys got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was a young ensign named Keenan, and his gunner, a fellow named Bill Parsons. And Bill Parsons was a friend of the parachute rigger, a fellow named Dick Huddleston. They were close. And when Bill took off on this mission, Dick gave him his wedding ring for good luck. Of course, he never got it back.
Oh.
So that was our introduction to combat. And from then on, the next mission we hit was pre-invasion of Okinawa. That was we went down there, and there was nothing that I could see on the ocean.
Yeah.
And we bombed and strafed places on Okinawa, and then the next time I went back, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was ships everywhere, as far as you could see. There was ships all over the place, and there was rockets going through the air, launches, and you could see the flashes of all the ships firing. And it was unbelievable, I mean, it was a bare ocean yesterday, and all of a sudden, I think that was Easter Sunday too, and we got into the routine of bombing and strafing, and it just got to be. Sometimes we would go into Tokyo Bay. I remember we went in on a strike on Tokyo Bay, and they had a battleship called the Nagato. And what the Japanese had done, they had built land out all around it, and they had these palm trees growing out of the deck in an attempt to camouflage it.
Yeah.
But when they took a photo of it, you could see the whole outline of it, so we went in to attack it.
Yeah.
And then some of the guys used to drop messages to them. You better water the garden. The trees are looking tough and things like that, you know. But we got credit for a hit on that Nagato battleship, and that was a 45,000-ton battleship.
Wow.
And of course, the anti-aircraft fire in that area would be terrific, you know. And we carried this stuff in the plane called window. It was long strips of aluminum sandwiched between strips of cardboard. It was very thin and probably about 2.5 feet long. We carried a bundle of that. They cut a little door in the side of the plane. Theoretically, we would throw it out and it would hamper their radar control guns. Theoretically, the only problem with that is they didn't have any radar control guns. But
Sure.
but these were some of the things that.
Did you lose a lot of planes to the anti-aircraft, or?
Our squadron was pretty lucky. Well, of course, I crashed myself later on, but I don't know whether it was anti-aircraft fire or what. But
You crashed where?
I crashed off of northern Honshu.
Oh, can you tell me about that? What happened?
Well, that was late in the war. That was on August the 9th, 1945. We went up to bomb an airfield in northern Honshu. And going in, I was using the radar and it was working fine. And we made the run. The anti-aircraft fire was pretty heavy. And we made the run on it. And then we joined the formation to return to the carrier. And after we got...
You were with Leclerc?
Yeah.
Okay.
After we... and Fitzy was with us on this mission.
Yeah.
And when we got about 75, 100 miles offshore, Leclerc gets on. He says, we got to go in the drink. He said, it's quit on us. So...
the engine
Yeah.
just quit?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's just a mechanical difficulty.
we don't know. I don't know
Okay.
whether... Leclerc never mentioned it. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know whether... But I do know that my radar was no longer working.
Okay.
You know? So I watched to see what he was doing, and I had a ball indicator in the back and also an altimeter. So Fitzy was shouting down at me, how high are we? You know, and I say, 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
Then I saw the ball indicator move, and Fitzy and Leclerc was trying to head into the wind.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous move with a heavy plane like that has no power. It could put
Okay.
you into a spin. But he made it. And Fitzy kept asking me, you know, and I kept answering him. But finally I said, I'm busy. So I wanted to be sure that I was buckled in real tight.
Did you have parachutes?
He had chest pack, yeah. He didn't order us to bail out, so we couldn't.
Yeah.
But I had a close friend of mine.
So what? But can you finish that? So you went into the drink.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we rode all the way down, and
How hard did you hit when you?
well, that's when I mentioned about this close friend of mine.
Okay.
I had a close friend that was killed in May in the same type of landing, and it bothered me. You know, him and I were real buddies, and I thought about it a lot. And I always felt that what happened with him was that he released his safety belt at the first impact, and he got thrown forward the second impact, and he smashed into the bottom of the turret, and it killed him. So I thought about that, you know.
Did other people live on that accident? That when
yeah,
they landed?
the pilot and the gunner did.
Oh, the
yeah.
pilot and the gunner. Yeah.
But anyway, I was strapping myself in as tight as I could, and I had it in my mind that I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to get out until the seawater is coming in.
Yeah.
So anyway, the plane came down, and Leclerc made a beautiful landing. The tail hit first,
Yeah.
and then the nose. And I unbuckled, and I pulled the emergency hatch on the door, but the emergency hatch didn't work. The door didn't go off, you know. So I decided that I would try to crawl up through the center of the plane and come out that way. And
Yeah.
I started to do that, but then I said, geez, if I get hung up on any of this equipment, I'm dead.
Yeah.
You know, so I said, I'll go back and I'll go out through the turret because Fitzy was already gone. So I went back, But I thought I'd give the hatch one more shot, so I put my back up against the bulkhead and I give it a kick with both feet, and it went flying out. Just missed LeClaire, who was coming over to see if I was all right. You know?
Yeah.
And he said, well, "You all right, Jim?" I said, "Yeah, I'm all right." He said, "Well, get out of there before it sinks." So I jumped out, and I noticed the life raft was bobbing away, you know. And I'm not a good swimmer. I wanted that life raft.
Yeah.
So I went after it. And of course, I pulled the cord, and naturally, it flayed upside down.
Yeah.
So anyway, the three of us managed to get the life raft over, and we got in.
Well, how cold was the water there?
Didn't feel cold. It
Okay.
felt fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we sat, and of course, it was only a two-man life raft. There was three of us.
Yeah.
And we tried. The first thing I wanted to do, was to try my weapon and make sure that at least worked, and it did. We carried 38s.
Yeah.
And some of the planes circled overhead for a while, and then one of them dropped a wing tank. I don't know why. Maybe he figured it would for flotation.
Yeah.
And away they went. All of a sudden, there you are, you're all alone.
Yeah.
You know? And so
No ships.
No, there wasn't anything.
And this was on returning from Japan.
Yeah, returning from northern Honshu.
So you might have been picked up by a Japanese boat.
That was
very likely,
that
right?
was well, you know, we had one thing in our advantage. That was August the 9th. That was the day they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. So there was a lot of planes, a lot of ships in that area in case anything went wrong with the drop. You know?
Okay.
So we were sitting there for a few hours, and then I became aware of a peculiar noise, and I thought it was Fitzy at first, and it wasn't. But Fitzy had sat on the air release, and the raft was sinking.
Oh no!
I got the pump and pumped it up so everything was all right. But
okay.
I checked all the stuff in there. Some of the cans of water were empty.
Yeah.
And after a few hours, we could see these specks on the horizon approaching, you know, and we kept watching them. Of course, the first thing, is it friendly or is it not, you know?
Right, yeah.
And as they got closer, we could see the flags, and so we knew it was ours. And it was 4 destroyers, and they were led by the Frank Knox. It was a brand new destroyer.
Yeah.
And they came alongside and they picked us up. And when I got over the rail, the big sailor picked me up and was starting to carry me to the sick bay. And I said, "No, I'm all right. I can walk, you know." So we went down to sick bay, and the medical officer put big pot of coffee in front of us, and then he poured a pint of booze in it. And we said, "What's that for?" And he said, "Well, if you swallowed any seawater, that'll make you throw up, you know." We all drank it. We didn't throw up. But anyway, they took us up to the bridge and introduced us and to the captain, and we thanked him, you know. And the crew was very good. We got all fresh clothing, and they found out I was a pipe smoker, so they gave me a pipe and tobacco, and you know, and one of them even told me that he said it was the first time they ever picked up the full crew of a torpedo bomber. He said usually the radio man was dead. I said, "Oh, great."
Huh.
So we spent, I think, a day or so on there.
Yeah.
And then they took us back to the Essex, and they had a boatswain's chair on a line from the Essex over to the destroyer. You got in the boatswain's chair, and they hoisted you.
Yeah.
1 minute as the ships go, you go down, and then the next minute you're up here. And while you're going over there, right on another line going the other way, is a huge container of ice cream. For each airman they saved, they got this huge container of ice cream. And I thought that was a pretty good swap.
Yeah.
So anyway, I figured, well, this was late in the war, and I said, I won't fly any bull. The next thing I know, I'm in the turret again.
With Leclerc?
Yeah, with Leclerc. We're headed into Japan.
Yeah.
And then they got the wave. Just as we sighted the islands, and as we were coming back, they called us and said, return to carriers. So we jettisoned our bombs and landed, and then 45 minutes later, Captain got on and told us that the war was over.
Really?
But I did have, there was a couple of things that you remember vividly.
Yeah.
I landed after a mission one day, and I was walking across the flight deck, and there was an officer standing there, and I noticed there was a bunch of guys hanging around with the hatch that led below.
Yeah.
And so this officer stopped me, and he said, "How was it out there, son?" You know. So I said, "It wasn't bad, sir. It was a regular milk run." So I continued on, and the sailors, when I got up to them, they said, "Hey, do you know who that was you were talking to?" I said, "No. Who was it?" He said, "That was Admiral Byrd." I said, "Well, what about that?" So I remember Admiral Byrd. He don't remember me, but I remember him. And you know, with like some of the places after the war, even we went into POW camps and we dropped packages, you know, to the guy. They were all up on the roof, you know.
In
these
the POW
buildings.
camps in
Yeah,
Japan?
Yeah, in Japan, and we dropped cigarettes and
Yeah.
you know, which at that time everybody used cigarettes. You know?
Right.
And on one of those missions, I remember we were flying low, and I happened to look down. I saw a building, and I saw what looked like a company of Japanese soldiers, or they might have been students, but they were drilling. You know, they were marching.
Yeah.
And I can remember tracking with the machine gun. You know, and
Yeah.
looking. Can't do it, Jim.
War's over.
The war's
Yeah.
over. Yeah, the war was over, but we still shot down our share of kamikazes that very day.
Oh, really? They
yeah,
were
there
still.
There were still the diehards. You know,
Yeah.
They kept coming in. And it was
Did you ever have, while you were on the ship, a kamikaze hit the
not the
aircraft carrier?
no. I had one incident. I was playing. You know, when we weren't flying, if they went to general quarters, we were supposed to go down below to a mess room. And I was down there playing chess with another fellow, and all of a sudden there was a terrific explosion. You could feel the whole ship went up in the air, and I went over to the hatch to get out. I couldn't get out. They had everything dogged.
Yeah.
You know? Here I said, never again, never, and I'll never get caught below again.
Yeah.
I never did. I made sure I always had a way to get out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just I didn't want to get trapped
Yeah.
below. And
Did you ever set foot on Japan?
No, just on Okinawa.
Just on
You know,
Okinawa.
on that
and
one
that was a
mission where
devastated island.
But there was interesting things happened. You know, we sank some ferry boats up in between northern Honshu and Hokkaido.
Yeah.
That bothered me a little bit. Even now, it didn't bother me then. It bothers me now, because mostly when you went into these places and used your machine gun, you didn't see people.
Yeah.
But this time we saw people.
Oh, you did, yeah.
In the water.
Yeah.
And we strafed.
Really?
And I just read a book called I read a book called A Glorious Way to Die.
Yeah.
And it was about the attack on the Yamato. And I was surprised when they mentioned at the end, that was the last Japanese fleet,
Yeah.
that the fighters went in and strafed.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I wasn't the only one that did it. You know?
Sure, yeah.
But if looking at it from my age now, I wouldn't want to do that again. You know.
Yeah. Well, it was a bloody, terrible war. But listen, we've reached our third interview, and James, it's been really great.
I've enjoyed it.
Talking to you, and it's been a real privilege, actually. And
I only did what I was told to do. You know, it's as simple as that. You actually, it's just circumstance. You're in a certain area and you do it, and that's
right,
it.
yeah. And you've lived really through an incredible time. I mean, just from the story of your life runs through the Depression, through World War II, and then here we are in another, a new millennium, actually, and stuff. I guess the changes you've seen from selling coal in an old AMP to today. I know you're on the internet, you're talking to some of your old mates and stuff. But again, thank you very much for your service.
Oh, thank you
for the privilege of having you here, and
thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
And I want to thank you for joining us. If you happen to be a veteran or something like that and would like to come and talk about your service and the history, I think these are important. They're going to be part of a permanent archive in the Library of Congress and also here in Chelmsford. Thank you for joining us for the History Show.
rationing. And the Screen magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain to me the and he wanted to know that what he could do in that the world's greater cities become a monument to the courage and faith of the upstanding Americans.
I want to thank you for joining us for this another interview with James Purtell, who was served in the Pacific Theater aboard the aircraft carrier Essex as a radio airman during World War II. We've done a number of interviews with him, but he's such a great storyteller. We've got him back for one more. This is part of a program that we're doing in conjunction with the Library of Congress. These interviews that we're doing with veterans will be archived at the Library of Congress, and people can access them for various research purposes in the coming centuries as they see fit. If you're a veteran and you're interested in joining us, like James has here, we'd be more than happy to have you contact us at Chelmsford Telemedia. It's relatively painless, right, James?
Yes, right. No problem whatsoever.
And this is important history for the country and for us to for the future. So thank you again for being with us here. When we last left you, we were talking about your combat missions off the Essex. I believe you flew 23 combat missions?
23, yeah.
23. Mm-hmm. And we had just talked a little bit about you had your last mission was actually you turned back because the war was over.
Right.
When you had also had a situation where you had to crash land in the ocean there, which you survived without injury.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah. And when you flew your missions, was it always with the same pilot?
Yes, I always
Leclerc?
flew with Lieutenant Leclerc.
Yeah, and with Fitzy.
Fitzy, we would alternate unless
Okay.
it was an extremely dangerous mission.
But
then it'd be one or the other.
The three of you were pretty close.
Oh yeah,
You were
very
telling me
close.
about one interesting episode that happened where you almost bailed out of the plane by mistake.
Oh, that was when we were in training. We were on a navigation hop, which is a very boring flight because you fly so far this, so far that, and it was just a real boring flight. There's no other way to describe it. But anyway, Fitzy was in the turret, and I was using the radar equipment. And suddenly, out of a clear blue, I noticed all kinds of activity in the turret over my head. I looked up, and Fitzy was coming down out of the turret. So I said to him, "What's the matter?" And he shouted to me and said, "The pilot just bailed out." So he grabs the parachute off the side of the plane and put it on. And I grabbed my chute and put it on. In the meantime, Fitzy had reached over and pulled a lever, and away went the door, or the hatch, and he's standing in the hatch ready to go. But I still had my earphones on. And I heard this voice suddenly say, "What's going on back there?" And so I grabbed Fitzy and said, "The pilot's still here." So anyway, we landed. We landed after a while. Of course, no door on the side of the plane. And when we got off, and Lieutenant Leclerc got down, and he said, "I would have given," he said, "a month's pay." When we told him what happened, he said, "I would have given a month's pay to see you two floating down into the ocean." So that was one of the comical things that happened. But sometimes there were things.
And there was another incident with wire.
Oh yeah, that was actually in combat. That was on a carrier, but Fitzy had a flight, and in the back of in the radioman's compartment there was a reel on the side of the bulkhead, and it contained copper wire. And I've never used it. I don't know what it was really for, but I suspect that it was used as an antenna at one time, and it was a reel of copper wire with a huge weight on the end of it. And for some reason, I don't know why, but Fitzy had let it out. I don't know why, because we weren't even using transmitters at that time. And when he tried to retrieve it, the the handle on the reel got stuck, or the reel got stuck, so he had to pull it all in hand over hand, because of course he couldn't land on the plane with it like that, with that weight on the. So when he landed, I went out to see what was going on, because he was in the plane longer than normal. And when I opened the hatch, the back of the radioman's compartment was just loaded with copper wire. And poor Fitzy, I said, asked him what he did. And he said, I let the thing out and I couldn't get it back. I said, what did you leave it out for? Fitzy just didn't operate too well with the radio, I'm afraid. But that was amusing.
Now, especially you and these LeClaire and Fitzy, you must have gotten pretty close over a period of time.
Yeah, we did. Sometimes, even while we were in training, I used to sometimes make a bet with LeClaire that he wouldn't hit the target, and it was always a quart of booze, because officers had it and we didn't.
Oh, really?
And I got a few now and then. But
what was LeClaire's background?
He was a lineman, telephone lineman. He was I was the old man of the plane.
Yeah.
He was. I think he was 19. I was. Let me see. I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Fitzy was from.
Fitzy was a year, I think, younger than me.
Where were they from?
LeClaire was from Seattle and still lives there. As a matter of fact, I called him about 5 years ago and spoke to him. I hadn't spoke to him in over 50 years.
Now that had to be interesting.
It was, yeah.
You got his number off the internet?
I got his number off the internet, and I called him. And
what was his reaction?
Oh, he was. We of course we went war stories, But he told me he doesn't. He said he had to give up flying because he has diabetes and his eyes were going on him.
Yeah.
And I contacted Fitzy a couple of times, but I never got a call back.
Where was Fitzy?
Lynn, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
And he just some people are interested, some aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it goes. But the other fellows that I managed to contact, with John Eberhardt, who lives out in San Pedro, him I got a really strange way. I looked up his old town where he originally lived. There was no John Eberhardt. And so then I looked in California for Eberhardts. On the theory that our generation more or less stayed put. And there was a lot of John Eberhardts. But I remembered something that happened on the carrier. He had a girlfriend. Her name was Genevieve. And I used to kid him when we get mail call. I'd say, did you get a letter from Gwendolyn? And next time I'd say, did you get a letter from Guinevere? And he'd say, her name is Genevieve, And he'd get so mad at me.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, there was one John Eberhardt that said John Eberhardt and Genevieve. So that evening I called the number.
Yeah.
And it was Genevieve that answered the phone.
Uh-huh.
When I explained who I was, she said, oh, he'll be so excited. She said that you called. So she called him from upstairs. And from him, I made contact to his gunner, who he was in contact with, who lives in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And then a fellow named Guns, he was a gunner on the Essex, but he wasn't on it till the 50s.
Yeah.
And he was the one that nominated me for that honor roll.
Yeah, the enlisted combat aircraft roll of honor.
Yeah.
There.
I didn't go to it, but they sent that plaque. They have a ceremony every November. They take so many enlisted men in, every year.
Right.
And this Guns, I get quite a bit of mail from him. He's done a lot of stuff. He's got a great website.
Yeah.
Guest books and all kinds of information.
So he's got a website dedicated to
the Essex. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. He's a very interesting man, and he hasn't been too well. I haven't heard from him in a while. I've been meaning to send an email to see how he's doing, because I know he has been ill. But
do you know the address off the top of your head of the website?
No, but if you just click in USS Essex Association,
you'll get it.
You'll even find on there a thing that I did for it too. I did, and Somebody else too. Oh, K.O. I think did it also.
Yeah.
K.O. Johnson. But some of the things that were funny. When we get back to the Seattle, when we landed, we flew in from the carrier. I had an incident there too. I was ready to take off, and this young ensign came and he opened the hatch and he got in with me, and I said, what are you doing, sir? He said, I have to fly ashore with you. I said, oh, that's fine. So I said, where would you like to sit? He said, where are you going to sit? I said, right here. He said, well, can I sit here too? I said, yeah, sure, there's room for two. I said, but we'll buckle in. So we were in front of this guy was nervous, I could tell. We were in front of the superstructure getting ready to take off. For some reason or other, they changed it and decided they were going to shoot us off on the catapult.
Yeah.
So they moved us over to the catapult. And he says to me, what's going on? I said, they're going to shoot us off. He said, what do I do? I said, nothing, just relax. I said, there's a handhold in front of you. Grab a hold of that and you'll be okay. So all of a sudden we take off. Next thing I know, I feel two arms around me. It was the first time an officer ever hugged me. So we flew into Seattle, and there was some poor soul that was on the ground in a civilian plane requesting permission to take off. And I heard the guy on the tower say, hold your position. There are 90 planes in the landing circle, and it was hot. So we landed, and I was walking down the road, and I heard this voice say, square that hat, get rid of that pipe, and roll down those sleeves. And I said, oh boy, I'm back in the landlocked Navy.
Yeah.
So I went into the place they gave me for a bunk room, and 0400, no, it was not 0400, it was 1600. They came on the speaker and said, the uniform of the day is undress blues. I didn't plan on going anywhere, so I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Master Arms student, he says, you're out of uniform. I said, I'm not going anywhere. He said, doesn't make any difference. He said, you have to have on undress blues. I got up, put on my dress blues, went into Seattle, got a hotel room, and stayed there until every night until I finally got orders. And then I had to stay in Seattle. Me and Fitzy both. A friend of ours that was on the ground crew got into a serious situation, and he was going to be court-martialed. And he named Fitzy and myself as witnesses, character witnesses.
What serious situation had he?
I don't want to go into details on it. But anyway, because we were named as witnesses, we couldn't leave that naval district.
Yeah.
So again, I got grabbed for decommissioning the squadron. Well, as it turned out, it wasn't bad duty. What I had to do was to get all the information I could on this guy that was going to be court-martialed and make copies of it, and I did that. But one of my duties also was to go through the death and casualty file that we had.
Yeah.
And some of it was pretty sad. There was my friend J.R. Wilson, who I told you about earlier, that was killed in the crash, with the turret.
Yeah.
His mother, apparently, when he wrote his last letter to her, he must have said, I'll write again, because all she wanted to know was, would you please look through his belongings and see if maybe there's another letter that he was going to write. And then there was another friend of mine named Demianchek that got killed. His mother didn't speak English. She was Polish. And his sister wrote, and she wanted to know that maybe he wasn't flying that day, or maybe he parachuted, I saw Demianchek get killed. We were carrying magnesium bombs on a raid, and his plane got hit, and I saw it tip over and go into the side of a mountain and blow up. Nobody survived it,
Yeah.
And it was sad, but then there was also others that wanted to know when the insurance would be paid and things like that.
Yeah.
Human nature it's strange. And another incident we had, which was funny when we landed in Seattle, we got a call one day to get into our dress blues and go into a news, what do they call it, like a club where the newspaper people go. We went in there and they had a Hollywood actress. I'd never heard of her before. I don't know whether anybody heard of her either. Her name was, God, I can't think of it, Elizabeth Scott. Same name as yours.
Okay.
And so there was 4 of us. We were all DFC. We all had the Distinguished Flying Cross, and that's why they picked us. And we sat down and, talked. Then they decided they were going to take a photo, a group photo. But
Yeah.
she wouldn't let the Navy photog take it. She insisted on their photographer taking it. We were promised we were going to get pictures. We
Yeah.
never did. That was forgotten.
Oh,
but that was
no.
just one little episode. You know?
Yeah.
And all of these little things you remember. There's the bad parts, but there's also the good parts.
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
And it just.
How
goes-
much longer did you stay in the Navy then?
Because I had the Distinguished Flying Cross, I was eligible for immediate discharge.
Yeah.
And I took it.
Had you thought about maybe making a career out of it, or?
I did. I thought of it, and it was strange, but it was a misunderstanding on the part of my wife and I both. She would have loved it, she told me, some years later, and I thought she would hate it, moving around, you know, from base to base.
Was this a gal that you had waiting for you while you were away, or?
Oh yeah, we got married. The last page of the book? It shows a telegram I got when we were going to get married.
Yeah.
And they canceled my leave. I still have the telegram in there.
So you were going to.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is leave canceled.
Yeah.
Urgent. You return immediately.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's where I told you my connections with the personnel officer paid off, because I managed to. I was supposed to be restricted to the base.
Yeah.
But he let me go ashore. He gave me a letter to permission to go ashore, and I did. You know?
So did you get married while
yeah,
you were?
we got married. We spent our honeymoon in some flea bag hotel up in Fitchburg because we couldn't go anyplace else.
Yeah.
But the B&M Railroad obligingly put some cattle cars under our window that mooed all night long. But Lieutenant Brown gave me a couple of extra days, so
Yeah.
we made out okay. But I thought that she didn't want me to stay in the Navy, and she told me many years, you know, not many years, but a few years later, that she would have loved it. And I said, well, too late now. I'm back
Yeah.
on the railroad.
How long were you married to her for?
We've been married. We'll be married 59 years.
59. Wow.
Yeah, in October.
Gee
That,
whiz.
that was dated October 28th, and we got married on October 30th.
Wow.
But,
That's something.
Yeah, it's a little while.
So you, but you thought. So the reason you didn't stay in is because you thought that she wouldn't want
Yeah,
it.
I liked the Navy. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
You know, there was the bad parts, but what the heck? I was first class, and my chances of making chief were good.
Yeah.
You know, or even going to learn how to fly, because I did take some kind of an exam, but the war ended, and that was the end of it.
Sure.
To go to flight school, you know.
How did you like flying?
Oh, I loved it.
Did you?
But you know, I've only been in a plane once since. My last flight was from Sandpoint, Seattle, to Kitsick Field. I flew with Lieutenant Commander White because of the court-martial proceedings I was involved in.
Yeah.
And we flew to Kitsick Fields. I was supposed to see the lawyer that was going to represent this guy, and fortunately it was thrown out.
Okay.
So that was the end of that. But we got stuck at Kitsick Field. I had given the commander the records, and he placed them on a table when we were at Seattle. And when we got to Kitsick Field, he didn't have them. He said, "Where's the?" I said, "I gave them to you back at." He said, "Oh, I'll fly back and get them, and I'll come back." But in the meantime, the weather closed in,
Yeah.
and so Fitzy and I were stuck there. But Fitzy had a lot of gall, and he went up and asked some officer, to give us a ride out to the ship, and he did. And it was weird. The ship was in dry dock.
Yeah.
You walk through the ship, and you can hear the clanky of feet. And I come to the ready room, and I open the ready room door, and it was all black in there, pitch black.
It was empty.
No sound of music.
Why did you fly back out to the ship? Just.
Oh, we went back to the ship because we had to talk to the lawyer that was representing our friend who was going to be court-martialed.
And he was on the ship?
He was still on the ship. We went down to his ward room.
Yeah.
Just as well from my conversation with him that he didn't sound like he was representing anybody. But anyway.
But there was just a few people left on the ship.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, there was and incidentally, we had on flight clothing, and from force of habit, we're still wearing a bandolier of ammunition on the sidearm.
Yeah.
And a knife, you know. And when we went to get off, the officer of the deck says, "You guys won't get 10 feet dressed like that." So he gave us And he was right. The shore patrol was stopping us all along the line, but we
Yeah.
finally got back to the ship. We had to take a ferry boat. I forget, but we got up to waiting for the ferry boat, and there was a shore patrolman over there talking to a young lady, and he's swinging his club, and he happened to glance over, and he saw us.
Yeah.
He took a second look, and then he come over, because we had on flight clothing, and
Yeah.
but that was the last time I flew in a plane. Although Lieutenant Commander White I met afterwards, he attended a wedding of one of our shipmates, and I met him
You
there.
mean you've never even flown in a jet, or?
I never flown. I flew in a plane down to Plum Island, and that was all.
Huh.
And I have no desire to fly. I would feel very.
Well, you're a railroad man.
Yeah, but I would feel very uncomfortable flying in a commercial plane. Not the flying part doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
What scares me is the panic that would be caused in the event of an emergency. I couldn't handle that.
After flying 23
I
combat
don't
missions?
like crowds. Crowds have no common sense.
Yeah.
As you see all the time, and I don't like crowds. I don't like being in them. I kind of like, sometimes you watch on television and you see some kind of a concert where the young people, God, I can't imagine myself going
Really?
to something like that. I mean, I
What
couldn't
about
do it.
Red Sox games or something like that?
I'm not a sports fan.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've never had a. I like weird things. I like chess. I love to play chess.
Sure.
I play chess on the computer, and I like that. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I like cross country skiing and hiking.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Of course, I don't anymore because
okay.
my doctor told me I should avoid cross country skiing. There's something in my back. He said
Yeah.
if I took a bad fall, it could worse.
Okay.
So I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. The time that you spent out in the Pacific Ocean and stuff, in between missions and stuff, would you have leave or anything like that, or was it basically once you got assigned to the Essex, you were with them on ship right to the end of the war?
Yeah, I was. I stayed on there. We our first cruise was, I think, 79 days we spent at sea. Actually, we were more lucky than the others because at least we saw land. When we flew over, even though you were bombing it, you saw it.
Right.
And we returned to somewhere in the Philippines to replenish the ship.
Yeah.
And after we replenished the ship, we did have a recreation aboard on one of the islands. I don't remember which one. But it's funny, I mentioned my friend Dimi Anchek. In my mind, I can still see him. I was sitting up against a tree, and I can see him walking with a can of beer in his hand and saying, "Hey, Jim, look what I got," And then, he's gone. But
Yeah.
that's how I remember him.
And then you did get to the island of Okinawa
Yeah.
after the battle.
Yes. Well, no, the Marines were still on there. The battle was still there.
Oh, it was still going on.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when we landed that day to be briefed, I can remember it was all mud. There was mud everywhere. And a Marine called me over to his tent, and he had souvenirs that a samurai sword and other things that I thought he wanted to sell them to me.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He just wanted to show them.
Right.
Because what would I do with a sword?
Yeah.
I had an aircraft clock that I managed to grab from a plane that was going to be jettisoned. But
Yeah.
I gave it to a young fellow, and I was never much for saving things.
Sure. What was the island of Okinawa like? I mean, just walking around there. I mean, was it?
Well, I did very little. We weren't there that long. We were only there for a briefing.
Yeah.
And then we took off to hit the Shuri Castle. And it was just all I can remember about Okinawa was mud everywhere.
Yeah.
But the devastation in Tokyo when we flew over, when we bombed it.
That was probably the most heavily bombed city in the...
Yeah, there was nothing but desolation. But yet I remember flying over the, what do they call the building where the emperor lives, the palace.
Yeah.
It looked completely unscathed.
So you didn't bomb the Emperor's Palace or anything?
No. It looked fine to me from the air anyway,
Right, yeah.
But you see, most of the time when you make bombing runs, you don't see people. You know, it's buildings. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
And except for the, you know, when it's a ship, then it's a different story.
Now you did bomb ships sometimes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And anything that you could aim your gun at, you know, you fired at, you know.
Right.
And the thing is, when I landed on a carrier after a combat, I felt perfectly safe, you know. Even though there was kamikazes every single day.
Yeah.
You know, you'd look up and the sky would be just black with flak.
Yeah.
They're all firing at it. And you got to the point where no matter where you were in the ship, by listening to the guns, you could tell how much danger your ship was in, you know. You'd hear the 5 inches go off and you wouldn't worry too much. Then you hear the 40s and then the 20s and maybe even a 50 cal. Now you're starting to worry, you know. And I remember being in the ready room one time and I'm listening to the guns go off. We're at General Quarters and there was a friend of mine named John Egan and he was sitting in a chair smoking his pipe. And all of a sudden the 20s start going on and next thing I know, there was our ready room was like here and the pilot's ready room was here and there was a short passageway in between. There was a head there also. And he disappeared into that passageway and I thought, well, this is maybe a good idea if we did do the same thing. And I did, and I looked and there's John behind the door of the hatch smoking his pipe. It's funny. There are some funny incidents.
Yeah.
I was helping a plane captain put a new windshield on one of our planes one day too, and all of a sudden I heard this guy scream. You know, and I looked. We were on the hangar deck, and he started to run for the side of the ship. You know, like he was going to jump. I saw a couple of medics go after him and grab him. You know, he just reached a breaking point.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, now, but when you were on your missions, you didn't get attacked by planes. It was mostly anti-aircraft.
I never was attacked by a Japanese plane.
Yeah.
Once on one mission, I can remember I saw one off in the distance.
Yeah.
And I tracked him with the gun, but he didn't seem interested in me, and he was beyond range for me to fire at him, so I didn't.
Yeah.
And that was the only time. But I saw plenty of Jap planes, but not attacking me personally.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That stage of the war, most of their expert pilots were gone.
Right. Yeah.
See, they didn't.
And they were mostly involved with kamikaze, the ones that were surviving.
And you know, young kids that really didn't know how to fly.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
That's why you had the Mariana turkey shoot and things like that, was because they didn't. I just finished reading an article about that. It said we replaced people. They didn't.
Yeah.
They relied on the fact that that group that were highly trained were going to last.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
You know, they were killed off or they left.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I watch the History Channel and I see Japanese pilots that survived, and sometimes you still get a little angry at them, and other times you say, they were doing what they were told to do too. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different culture, and I don't know.
And now they're one of our great allies.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look what we've done over there. How it was rebuilt. You know, I was no great admirer of Douglas MacArthur, but you have to give him credit, boy. He governed with. You know, he did a great job of governing Japan and rebuilding it. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
And the Japanese people are good people. You know, but they took a wrong turn down the road, like so many times that happens.
Yeah.
With great nations.
Yeah.
They listen to the wrong people at the wrong time.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we've done our 4th interview in this series. So,
Great.
James.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
it's been great.
I enjoyed it.
You
It was
are
fun.
a storyteller, and it's just been a joy to listen to you, and it's been a privilege too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us on the history program, and we'll see you next time.